What's going on, everybody? Welcome to the first episode of the Return to Custom Sunday series. On today's episode, I, Jacob Snow, will be taking this Darius figure, as we discussed in the review for said product, and trying to convert him into something that's not a poorly rendered League of Legends action figure. Material components, we are going to be using from the Coffee Can of Wonders. Paintbrushes, probably not all of them, don't worry. We're going to be using green paint. We're probably going to be using some black paint. And that will probably be it for this episode, because on this episode we're just going over like the basics of like getting him from the condition he's currently in to getting him to something usable. We'll also be using yellow paint and probably some white paint if we want. So, without further ado, let's get it started. Yeah, shake that. First bit of advice, if you're new to like customizing action figures or painting or what have you, using the lid is generally best practice. Just for the simple reason of you don't want to use all of the paint at once, especially not for a project like this, because you'll wind up getting way more paint than you intended if you just dip it into the bottle. But it also saves you the time and effort of having to deal with the process of selecting and cleaning a... What are those things called? Palette? Yeah, palette. We're trying not to give this man's green hair. Because ultimately, he's going to be an orc, but he's not going to be that kind of orc. I'm going to try and give it like a little bit of Warcraft vibes. Oh, missed part of his nose. And went up a bit off center on camera, my bad. The reason we're having so much difficulty keeping him on center is I can't see what I'm painting that well from the camera yet. Alright, so phase one, we have functionally given him like an avocado mask. We're going to be working to get the... Oh, missed an ear. There we go. And we'll need to second coat this, obviously, because like there's still a lot of the original tone peeking through. You can't see it because camera, but I can see it because not camera. So we're going to dip. And again, like you're not wanting to get a ton of paint here. Like about like that. And if that's too much, you just brush it on the edge. That'll get it where it needs to be. Now this part's going to be a little tricky, because we don't want to be scuffing up the incredible armor. Mucking it up with green paint would be a travesty. I know the angles and everything on this are freaking atrocious, but it's more just so I can hang out with you guys. There we go. Okay, so we had a little bit of overage hit the, there we go. That's less bad. Alright, so now we've got the head and neck greened. So he's going to be a member of orky goodness in no time. I'm going to pause the recording. No, I don't really need to, actually. Alright, let's go ahead and get working on these arms. For some reason the camera is just hyper fixating on the paint, which is funny. There we go. Haste makes waste. Just more or less just take your time. Because unlike on canvas, when it comes to painting action figures, there are mistakes. That does happen, but there is no mistake that is not reparable. Well, to clarify that, there are mistakes that are irreparable, but they are the exception, not the rule. Homeboy's looking good so far. I'm actually really impressed with how well he's taking to being an orc. But one thing I will posit is that as a custom, he's a little easier to work with because there are not a ton of fiddly bits. He's only 12 points of articulation, which like makes things a lot easier unto itself. My guy. So he seems to be a figure. This wasn't really tested in the review, but he does not seem to enjoy standing up without his stand. Or a stand of some sort, so I'm probably gonna grab this real quick. Not sure if y'all can hear it, but I've got a little white noise machine in the background just playing nice, peaceful, happy music, which is helping me not stress out. So those mistakes we were talking about, stress makes those. Okay. So on camera, he is taken to being green quite well. Over on my side, I am going to have to touch up his face a bit more. But that's fine. Okay. Let's get to work on the second arm. Dang nabbit. I'm gonna have to clean that off. There we go. More or less got it off the cap. Alright. Not sure how well y'all could see at the moment. Alright, there we go. Now, when it comes to painting this, whereas like compared to painting a Warhammer figure or something like that, thinning the paint is not nearly as required. Because first off, this guy cost $5. There's not really any loss of investment if the paint doesn't look like 100%. Second off, nobody's grading it. It's just for me. It's me painting an action figure that I intend to use in a video someday. So I don't need it to be perfect. I just need it to be good enough for me. And to be fair, good enough for me has gotten a lot better over the years. All right. Gonna pause the video, wait for this to dry, and then we're gonna come back to it and start working on second coating and details. Well, actually, I'll probably do the second coat while it's paused, because it's almost ready to do that second coat now. So I'm gonna pause it, and then we're gonna get back for the details. See y'all in a minute. Welcome back. Got the second coat applied, as you can tell. Well, as I can tell, it looks better on camera too, but it looks a lot better to me than it did. Got a little bit of green that we still need to apply on that arm. That's fine. We can handle that off cam. All right, so now we are going to work on detail, and this is, without a doubt, as any number of memes can show you, the hardest part of the process. Specifically, dealing with the eyes. So, we're going to... That's acceptable. Doesn't have to be perfect. I'd appreciate a little better, but steady hands and tiny brushes. Two things that we would like. Okay, so now he's got the yellow eyes. That one's still not quite right. Let me just bring that up a little. All right, there we go. So now he's got his nice yellow orc eyes. Now he looks kind of menacing. I like that. All right. So the next thing that we need to do is also extremely difficult, but it does not usually materialize on Warhammer models as much because most of the time they're wearing a helmet. This guy is not. And we now need to apply some eyebrows. Eyebrows are difficult. There we go. All right. They can be kind of big, bushy brows because he's a big, bushy, strong orc. The worst thing to paint are the eyebrows on a female action figure. There we go. He's got some nice big bushy brows. Now we add a nice kind of messy goatee. He looks appropriately orcish. A little bit of green in that hair. Yeah, we can paint the hair black. That's fine. Doesn't have to be a thick permanent coat. Just enough to make it look a little bit of variation there. All right. Now he looks like an orc. Plain and simple. We like plain and simple. It's a lot easier just repainting a figure than it is reassembling a figure or taking off, exchanging, and modding parts. That's really tough. Because there are even less happy accidents and even more mistakes because you can accidentally wind up snapping a peg or what have you. The hand can break. The friggin' hole that the pegs were supposed to go into can get stretched out or warped. You try to modify the head, and lo and behold, you modified it too much, now it doesn't fit anything. It's not the easiest thing in the world. So now we're going to take this Judicar sword, which comes from the first episode of Dragon Ridge Reviews. That was under that banner. And because one key part of modifying an action figure is creating a little bit of distance between what they were and what they are now, we now have a nice fantasy orc. Standard fantasy orc with a giant sword. honestly, there is a certain element, a certain part of me that feels like this must be what it's like to make a third-party MOBA. Okay, so we want to make Darius, but not Darius. So we've got an orc with a sword. Yes. It tickled me. So that will be the first episode of Custom Sunday Season 2, I guess. Done and dusted, and we're gonna just... That's as simple as that. Just painting an action figure. Now, if we did, for whatever reason, let's say, I don't know, I kind of like the derpy way he was before. This is your best friend, isopropyl alcohol. If you're using acrylic paints, isopropyl alcohol will eat that right off. You'll probably want a Q-tip for helping with the finer areas where the paint really got in, like around the nose and the eyes and stuff. But yeah, in the low time of around a half hour, just factoring for drying and everything like that, we were able to take a kind of mid Darius figure and turn him into a one-of-a-kind orc. And as they don't really make orc action figures that are proportioned like the big burly orcs, like Warcraft orcs, that saves us a ton of money because the closest orc alternative is from Boss Fight Studios, and they'll set you back around $30 for an orc, but it won't be even nearly as big as our boy here. So yeah, that's going to be all for this episode of Custom Sunday. I look forward to seeing you again. These are probably not going to be weekly uploads just because it's a little tough modding that often. Especially to this extent, or to the extent that you would want to record it. But for the first episode, I'm thinking like bi-weekly or monthly. It feels good to be back doing Custom Sundays. Until next we meet, I'm Jacob Snow, and may your journey continue.